Good evening, my name is Albert.
And my name is Paula. Welcome
to the Advocates Effect.
Tonight we explore the WikiLeaks controversy in the larger context of America's vitriolic domestic rhetoric.
In a January 10th press release, Jullian Assange is quoted to have said, "We call on U.S. authorities and others to protect the rule of law by aggressively prosecuting incitements to kill. A civil nation of laws cannot have prominent members of society constantly calling for the murder and assassination of other individuals or groups."
Sarah Palin became the center of much media attention in the wake of the Tucson tragedy for her history of fiery rhetoric, and for a map, issued last year by her PAC, that used gun sites to identify congressional Democratic districts that she hoped to target in the midterms. Representative Gabrielle Giffords, who was shot in the head in Tucson, was among those targeted on the map.
The official Twitter account for WikiLeaks posted a press release drawing a comparison between the controversial rhetoric from public figures that some believe contributed to the attempted assassination of Arizona Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords, and the even more explicit calls from public officials for violence against WikiLeaks spokesperson Jullian Assange and others.
The WikiLeaks organization has called for public figures making such calls to violence to be arrested and charged with crimes. Assange is attributed the following quote in the release: "No organization anywhere in the world is a more devoted advocate of free speech than WikiLeaks, but when senior politicians and attention-seeking media commentators call for specific individuals or groups of people to be killed, they should be charged with incitement to murder. Those who call for an act of murder deserve a significant share of the guilt as those raising a gun to pull the trigger." The WikiLeaks press release pointed to specific high-profile calls for Assange's assassination by Sarah Palin, Mike Huckabee and others, and concluded with a link to the website www.peopleokaywithmurderingassange.com. The website, People Okay with Murdering Assange, lists former U.S. vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin. She is quoted as follows: "Jullian Assange should be targeted like the Taliban."
Also, Fox News commentator Eric Bolling has said, "Assange should be underground, 6 feet underground. He should be put in jail or worse, hanged in a public forum."
Not to be outdone, Rush Limbaugh says, "Back in the old days, when men were men and countries were countries, this guy would die of lead poisoning from a bullet in the brain." Christian Whitten, in a Fox News opinion piece, called for violence against WikiLeaks publishers and editors, saying the U.S. should designate WikiLeaks and its officers as enemy combatants, paving the way for non-judicial actions against them.
John Hawkins of townhall.com has stated, "If Jullian Assange is shot in the head tomorrow, or if his car is blown up when he turns the key, what message do you think that would send about releasing sensitive American data?" Former White House advisor and now a talk show host, G. Gordon Liddy, says, "This fellow Anwar al-Awlaki, a joint U.S. citizen who is hiding out in Yemen, is on a kill list for inciting terrorism against the U.S. Mr. Assange should be put on the same list." The
WikiLeaks press release references multiple public statements that to many just seemed like obnoxious bluster when they were made, but admittedly look a little different when examined in light of the Palin gun site's visual calling for the unseating of Democratic Congresspeople, including Giffords.
Palin has responded to criticism of the graphic after 6 had been murdered and the assassination attempt. Primarily, Palin's statements have come by way of sympathy for the victims on her Facebook page, though she doesn't discuss the image itself. Comments that criticize Palin appear to be subject to deletion from the page.
A Palin aide said yesterday that the map was never intended to represent gun sites, rather that they were surveyors' marks.
Palin has referred to them as bullseyes on Twitter.
According to the WikiLeaks press release, WikiLeaks staff and contributors have also been the target of unprecedented violent rhetoric by noted U.S. media personalities, including prominent U.S. politician Mike Huckabee, who has called for the execution of WikiLeaks spokesman Jullian Assange on his Fox News program last November. While another Fox News commentator, Bob Beckel, referring to Assange, has publicly called for people to illegally shoot the son of a bitch.
U.S. radio personality Rush Limbaugh has called for pressure to give Fox News President Roger Ailes the order, and then there is no Assange.
In another example, Washington Times columnist Jeffrey Kuhner, who titled his column Assassinate Assange, captioned with a picture of Jullian Assange, overlaid with a gun sight, blood spatters, and the words "wanted dead or alive" with the word "alive" crossed out.
There certainly seems to be some logic to the argument WikiLeaks is making. Meaningful prohibition of public figures advocating extrajudicial killings of their political opponents might represent an even bigger disruption of the realpolitik status quo than the dissolution of diplomatic secrecy, however.
The ease of rapid publishing online, it's now easy for anyone to call for anyone else's assassination or arrest and find a global audience, but that new capability for any kind of message, good or bad, to fly far and free clearly requires a discussion of how to relate to it responsibly.
Sarah Palin is not shying away from pro-gun imagery, even in the midst of criticism of past violent political rhetoric after the shooting in Tucson.
In fact, she'll be headed to Nevada to keynote the convention of a major hunting organization, Safari Club International.
Politico reports that organizers made the announcement Palin would be appearing at a gun-related gathering less than a week after the shooting of Representative Jullian Giffords that badly injured her and left 6 dead.
Also, Sarah Palin will sit down Monday with fellow Fox pundit and notorious softball lobber, Sean Hannity. According to the New York Times, for her first interview since wading into the debate over the Tucson shooting. Palin's decision to do her first post-Tucson interview on Fox News isn't too surprising given that she's a paid Fox contributor who's often expressed disdain for the so-called lamestream media. But Hannity's show in particular should provide her with a very friendly setting to speak her mind without getting grilled. What is the reason why Americans can't be content within America where our nation and society centers around family, civic and social responsibilities?
Is the world a dangerous place, or have politicians and media in America made it so?
The predictable, neoconservative rhetoric was keenly observed by Tucson Sheriff Clarence Dubnick, who led the investigation into the Gifford shooting, saying that vitriolic rhetoric intended to inflame the public on a daily basis has an impact on people, especially who are unbalanced personalities to begin with.
Dubnick also observed that officials and media personalities engaging in violent rhetoric have to consider that they have some responsibility when incidents like this occur and may occur in the future.
America, the function of free speech is to invite dispute. It may indeed best serve its highest purpose when it induces a condition of unrest, creates dissatisfaction with conditions as they are, or even stirs people to anger. Speech is often provocative and challenging. As Sheriff Dubnick's nonpartisan observations and language suggests, there is a real danger that men of common intelligence who listen to the incitement of irresponsible words and expressions create more than a risk of danger for violence.
Has the rhetoric of violence in America, the calls for the murder of Assange by public figures, passed the bounds of argument, persuasion or even criminality?
Americans should not ignore or condone public figures, including media personalities who undertake incitement to murder, that once said they are powerless to prevent. The rights of those who speak, and those who listen, should be held to a standard that respects and preserves peace in our society.
Should we punish the civil wrongs of those who have some responsibility, as Sheriff Dubnick correctly observed, and should we prosecute those who have irresponsibly and publicly attempted to incite the murder of Jullian Assange? We hope you'll subscribe to The Advocates Effect. We invite and encourage your comments. This is your America. Let's do our own thinking.